The MoneroTopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Exolix, a privacy-focused, non-custodial instant crypto exchange. Go to exolix.com to enjoy secure and completely anonymous swaps with no KYC or sign-up. Swap between Monero and 2,000 plus assets at the most competitive rates and with no limits. Exolix.com, your fast and secure way to privacy.
Yeah, so Monero price is at 331. We're actually, the rest of the crypto market seems to be like kind of, I don't know, having a few problems, whatever. Monero seems to be actually performing quite well. It looks like we're about ready to break out here. I don't know. Should I go ahead and just get into it, or do we have any other announcements?
Go ahead and get into it. I'll put the xmrchat.com/MoneroTalk. Guys, send your super chats there. Just put it in the chat. And yeah, take it away.
Cool. And then remember to maximize the charts, please. Yeah, so we got Monero here and doing pretty good. It looks like we're about to maybe break towards the upside. Doug, do you want to put? Yeah, there we go. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so we're kind of forming maybe like this rising wedge, I guess. I don't know. But usually when you're knocking on that doorstep a few times, right, you're eventually gonna break out. So this blue line right here, it's a little bit faint. Probably can't see it that well, but that is the upper standard deviation, like kind of on the local sense. In fact, let's go to the 4-hour. That'll be easier to see. But you'll notice that's also coincident with the pleb line, so that's nice. That's kind of like a little, hey, these two things are kind of similar, kind of line up. So yeah, we've been bouncing at the top of that range, like 1, 2, at least 3 times, if not 4, 4, 5, 6 times. So this should break soon, guys. Like we should, as long as like there's not some sort of massive problem for risk markets and crypto markets here in the next few weeks. Monero's probably about to do this guy, something like that. The cabal, maybe they'll try and hold it off for a minute. Maybe everything else is just about to shoot up, so they don't mind if Monero shoots up with everything else, because then they can still keep the attention. Say, oh well, I mean, they're not going to say it, but the implication, because of the implication, they're gonna say that. I mean, of course, Monero's going up. Everything is going up. And they'll pump Zcash again. I don't know. Actually, I haven't looked at Zcash in a week. So let's see what's happened to Zcash. Oh, I guess they're just consolidating. It's kind of what this looks like to me. This looks like a pennant. You'd probably call this a pennant of some kind. So yeah, it looks like Zcash will probably, just from the fucking tea leaves, they'll probably get themselves another little pump here coming soon enough. Maybe they'll try and, man, they're probably gonna try and flip Monero. I'm not gonna lie. If Tux was here, I would reassure him not to worry, bro. Your gains are coming soon. But I don't trust them. I don't believe them. I think that's an entirely manufactured thing that happened there. It's not organic. Like I refuse to believe that that's organic. Nothing about what's happened there looks organic to me. So. Looking at the Bitcoin versus Monero ratio, or the Monero versus Bitcoin ratio, that right shoulder continues to play out. I guess we're gonna get our inverse head and shoulders, and this thing's gonna move towards the upside. That's what you would say here. I guess maybe at a minimum we would say, hey, look to hit this upper standard deviation range right there. It is that's a pretty big spot. So maybe that's not quite the time to break out of it yet. Any other asset, I would say there's a high probability that this would break out. Monero versus Bitcoin, I would have a harder time believing that. This guy right there, the fact that we saw Monero having strength above that lower standard deviation line, or the orange bands, we'll just call them, right inside of this orange bands. The fact that Monero didn't stop right there, and then came back to the downside, it actually poked above. That's actually a sign of strength, right? You would say that's a reasonably good sign of strength. You wouldn't typically, though, you don't want to end up down here again, right? You want to stop halfway down and then keep going. So it's not like super, super strong from the technical analysis, but having that little guy there is a slight point in a favor of Monero, but still I'm gonna say we'll probably cap out in this range. and then need at least some consolidation before breaking out. Or maybe we'll do another poke above. The absolute best setup we could hope for would look like that, right? But I just tend to think that, that's going to be difficult to do in a bull market. So I do think we're probably looking at a little bull market here, a little continuation of bull market, right? I've been saying that for weeks. This drop was just a liquidation event, right? They just had to wreck the longs, right? You can't have the plebs getting onto the platforms and saying 4-year cycle, and we're coming up and we're gonna do another 2x here, blah blah blah, whatever. Let me go 10x long. You can't have them getting onto these leverage trading, making a shitload of money, and then cashing out their tether at the end of the day, right? And cashing out those longs, because guess what that does? That robs the corporate exchange complex from the real US dollar liquidity that they need, because those people are going to sell into real US dollars. Like those people, like everyone has bills, right? No one is that no one is that pure except for shortwave. No one is that pure. Everyone's got bills, so they're going to sell. And so those people are going to stop our bull market short of where we could achieve a blow off unless you wreck them. So that's what happened. They got wrecked. Got to wreck those guys, so they can't sell, so they can't drain liquidity from the crypto exchange, the corporate crypto exchange complex, which is the way in which they leverage up price of all of the cryptos. Our liquidity is bonded together through the US dollar. Believe it or not, that's just how shit works, guys. I'm just here to tell you how it works. I'm sorry, but that's literally how the corporate exchange complex works. And it's not so apparent necessarily on the face of it, but that is like how things happen in the background. Why do you think they're all so concerned with being compliant? They're all compliant. And there's a good reason for that, because they're bound to the United States dollar through Tether, right? Through Tether. That's one of the main mechanisms that they did that. It was brilliant. They set up a little mini Federal Reserve of crypto called Tether USDT, and it works. And they also they hold bonds now. So a little coffee. Okay, so anyways, Bitcoins, don't worry. They wrecked they wrecked all the longs. They wrecked the leverage longs, including a few of our own people. And this thing's gonna continue going up, right? Like this is a bull market, and I'll just go over here to look at the Nasdaq to convince yourself, the Nasdaq and the S&P, that yes, this is still a bull market. We have made new all-time highs as of last Friday. We had a nice little pump. It was 2 weeks ago, right, that we had the flash crash on Friday. Trump said something. He said the word tariff online again. Or he had a press conference and he wagged his finger at probably Canada or something. Who knows? But it's China. It's always China. And then the markets crashed and they came back. Right. That was just, again, that's just the golden age of fraud. But it's not fraud because he's the president by definition. It's not fraud when the president or the Congress or judges do it. They have absolute immunity. It's kind of funny. Government for the people, by the people. We get to vote in who has the right to do fraud on us. I guess that's how democracy works. It's funny because it's so in your face now. Can't be denied, right? That's what democracy is. Anyways, we're in the channel, right? We talked about this for months now. This channel should be believed and respected, and it's strong, guys. This was the getting back into of the channel, right? We're almost there. Oh, can't quite do it. Hey, we're in there and not quite. And now we're like, this thing's gonna pump more, and we're gonna actually be solidly in the channel, and it's gonna continue going up. Like, guys, it's gonna continue going up probably for the whole rest of the Trump presidency. They're gonna keep pushing this higher. Does that mean the Bitcoin bull market will be the whole Trump presidency? Maybe, but not like the kinds of bull markets we've seen before, where it's like 2x on top of 5x gains, right? Bitcoin's going to be that slow and steady upward churner, right? It could take us a while to get there. But that's fine. Again, this is a $4 trillion market cap. Don't expect it to just go crazy, right? Expect it to perform a little bit more like the stock market, with more volatility, of course. But let's do something we haven't done in a little bit. Let's put the regression analysis. Let's overlay that on the chart so that you can get a feel for where we are in terms of the boundary pricing, right? The regression analysis should be considered to be a boundary price. The red and green lines are the cleanest type in terms of the analysis itself. They're the cleanest lines that we have. The blue line is not nearly as clean. The blue line is kind of like you have to do some slightly algorithmic magic to determine where that blue line should be, and even then we don't end up with the kind of normality that you want to see. on your statistical checks. So I trust the red and the blue lines more, but the red and the blue lines are not targets; they are boundaries, and there's a difference. You'll notice that that we didn't get all the way to the boundary down here at the bottom. We missed it by about 10%. For a process that moves up and down by 1,000%, right? 10x. That's remarkable to get within 10% out of a process that crashes. In this case, I think it was 80%. That's really good. So anyways, I'm not, that's not something that bothers me. That's just part of the nature of statistics. Like and modeling, you're not always going to nail it. Although we did nail it last time. We nailed the top here within 1%. That was literally on the dot. It was insane how good that was. So this would be our upper boundary. I guess we're looking for that as a target. The good news is that these lines are always rising. So if we believe these lines just in a general sense, we're going to say, hey, maybe if this bull market continues slowly and not, rapidly, maybe it does something like this. Maybe it takes us until, what did I say, the end of the Trump presidency, right? Maybe it's doing this. And maybe by the time the bull market peaks out, it happens somewhere like 270,000, right? In the middle of 2027. I don't know, guys. That's just one way it could play out. I'm just giving you some ideas here, but I do think the 4-year cycle is probably over. If the bull market extends beyond, let's say, January or February, you'll probably hear the word broken. The 4-year cycle has been broken, right? We're breaking out of the 4-year cycle. It's up now. It's time for the $1 million Bitcoin, right? You'll hear all the fucking idiots come out of the woodwork to say all the things, and you'll see all the headlines. And you guys are by now definitely smart enough to to not just buy into that kind of retardation and hype. So let's see. We're on total 3. When will this ever? I guess let's look at total 3 before we go to total. What are the shitcoins doing? Shitcoins look basically like Bitcoin. It's a bullish chart. Maybe it's not as like. Maybe it's not. It's definitely not quite as bullish as the total market cap chart. I guess they're similar. It's funny because Bitcoin by itself doesn't look as bullish as total, and total 3 by itself doesn't look as bullish as Bitcoin. Maybe that's maybe that was an accidental plug for the Ethereum price. I don't know. Yeah, I know this looks good. Everything's fine. It's still bull market territory. I guess ETH. Let's take a look at ETH. ETH, like when ETH breaks out, guys, ETH is gonna go. Like it hasn't broken out yet. Let's go to the weekly, so this is more clear. Right, ETH, yes, it has technically made a new all-time high. It's barely eked out a new tiny all-time high, but that's not the real go time. It's probably the next move when the next time Bitcoin and total starts making new all-time highs, Ethereum will be right there, kind of triple topping, and it'll be go time. The next time that Ethereum starts moving towards the upside, it's going to break out, and we're going to start seeing prices of 6,000-7,000 probably pretty quickly for Ethereum. So I'm not saying it's happening now, but it's probably not that far off. And from there, I bet you we see a pretty significant Ethereum overperformance to Bitcoin, and that will probably eventually drive the it'll eventually drive this dominance. Let's turn off. I don't know why I even have the moving averages. The moving averages are in white. They're usually not as useful for us. So what we're looking at here actually is not actually too surprising. So if I'd have been slightly more astute, I would have said, hey, here's the lower standard deviation on the Bitcoin dominance. And then here is a cluster of blue bands, which you actually, some changes I made to this script have brought out additional features that we couldn't see before. It's not because of the resource constraints of TradingView. This is not entirely straightforward how to optimize the script without waiting for the chart to load forever and having like 20 different indicators here on the left, whatever. Sorry, this is private. I know some people occasionally ask me to have this script, and my answer is always no. This is mine. Sorry, guys. This is one thing that's too valuable for me just to give away. But I'm sharing it here, kind of, right? You could take a look and see what the charts are on a weekly basis. Anyways, yeah, there's sort of this convergence zone right here, which I could have seen and could have been like, hey, you know what? That's actually a spot to think that we're going to have some resistance at this moment. As long as the bull market's on and continuing, we have to assume that the Bitcoin dominance is going to continue dropping, as happens with all of the rest of the bull markets. So there's also like nothing interesting has happened. Like I don't think anybody except for Bitcoiners actually care about any of the squabbling that they've been doing for the past 2 years now. It was funny at first with the memes, and it was cool and edgy with wizards and shit and JPEGs on Bitcoin. You know, Hal Finney was trying to figure out how to add more JPEGs to Bitcoin back in the day. And now they're just like, you've got cat eaters arguing with statists about like, what's the best way to stop dirty images ending up on Bitcoin? And like they're just out to lunch and nobody cares anymore. The only ones that care are people that are already in Bitcoin, and everyone else is on to other things because it's like their drama is not interesting enough. At least we have Zcash Hitler, right? At least we have Hitler revived supporting Zcash these days. Like we got something interesting going on. Anyways, point here. Let's get back to business. We're talking about the dominance, and this thing, once the bull market resumes, going to do this, and then it's going to break down some more. Probably, again, it's not going to break down post haste. We're not going down to 50, 40, 30 on the dominance. This thing is going to meander on towards the downside over a decent amount of time, especially if this breaks down even just one more time. That's kind of that will be our like final confirmation, because hypothetically here on a much longer timeline, we could still say, hey, the breakdown hasn't really been confirmed yet, right? You could hypothetically try and say maybe it'll do this, right? Maybe you could try and say that. And it's possible, you know, like that's the thing. Bitcoin doesn't need the drama to actually like hold big market cap. You've got BlackRock and Larry Fink, and every boomer knows what the fuck Bitcoin is now. So they're all, and they can buy it on the stock market. So like they've got that going for them. But it is still the golden age of fraud. And, you know, Bitcoin it's less easy to leverage that fraud, right? The fraud is institutionalized now, and institutionalized fraud doesn't make as much money as new fraud. So that's why the dominance chart has to go down. You can quote me on that, whatever retarded quote that sounded like that I just said. There's definitely a little bit of retardation and a little bit of genius in that quote. Okay, Monero doing better than everyone else in terms of its Z-scores, and somehow Binance Chain, ironically, Binance Chain also doing well. Let's see, Tron has taken a tumble in terms of its Z-scores. Yeah, everyone's still kind of trying to figure out how to get back up and dust themselves off from the liquidation event. But as we've talked about before, Monero's not really on the exchanges. It's harder to create this big cascading liquidation. It's also harder to do that when you don't have any Monero on your exchange to sell short onto the market. There's only so much downside that you can force, and typically it's a lie. It's a big fat lie that has to correct like almost immediately if you want to at all pretend like you're open for withdrawals. So yeah, Monero gains a little bit of points there in these liquidation events. For usually it'll go down the same amount, if not more, but it'll come right back. Like our wicks are much faster. They're measured in terms of hours, whereas as opposed to days. So that's kind of a good thing. Let's see. We didn't check the divergences. Nothing going on with divergences. CoinEx though had a little problems for, what was that? It was actually on Monday. On Monday. Yeah, so I guess everything looks fine here. Everything looks normal except for CoinEx. I don't know, for whatever reason, decided to go minus 3% for a period of time on Monday this week. Okay, whatever. Let's see, anything else here that we need to look at on the big picture crypto? I don't think so. I think we basically covered it. Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Probably no one here cares that much about that. It is a little bit of a bellwether in my mind. I mean, Ethereum does everything that Bitcoin does and better. It should have a higher market cap. It'll probably it never will actually flip. The value is at the endpoints, not necessarily on the platform, right? The platform itself already flipped Bitcoin. Like Ethereum hosts more value than Bitcoin hosts. Like it's in that sense, it already has flipped in Bitcoin. If you include all of the value that trades on top of Ethereum, like Tether and USDC and DAI and gold peg tokens, which I believe there are two major ones. All right, PaxG and then the Tether Gold. And then all kinds of other stuff, right? So like Ethereum already flipped Bitcoin in the sense that it hosts more value, but that doesn't mean that Ethereum is going to accrue all of that value, right? It has to share that with all the other things on its platform. So, and it also apparently has to share that with Sol now, which we've talked about before. Yeah, we don't need to look at Bitcoin versus anything. Let's look at the Monero hash rate. Sitting here about 5 gigas, pretty consistent, not doing too much different. Monero transaction count. I don't know if I've reloaded this page. Yeah, okay. So Monero transaction count is about the same as always, 25,000, centered right around 25,000. Yeah, so that's what crypto looks like. Let's look at the privacy shitcoins. Monero or Zcash. Yeah, I mean Zcash has a nice little pennant there. They, as far as they were concerned, there was no crash, which is another way you can tell that this price is being propped up. This is not, again, as we all know, this is not organic buying. The people didn't come in there and say, "Oh, it's time to buy Zcash now," and not Bitcoin, or Zcash now and not some other, any of the other coins out there. So this is just them. Again, they just wanted the corporate cabal. And for those of you that haven't, that are new, maybe people say, "Well, why? Why do they love Zcash and hate Monero? Why do they hate Monero so much?" There's a number of reasons. One of them is ASICs. Monero has kicked out ASICs repeatedly, and Bitmain. So Zcash, 70% of the hash power is owned by a single ASIC miner, by a single ASIC mining pool. And it's all ASIC mined in Zcash. So they got a shitload of it for free, right? The ASICs cabal, they got paid off. And ASICs cabal is basically synonymous with the corporate exchange complex. It's no accident that Coinbase and all these other exchanges came around. Their advent happened right around the time that ASICs took control of the Bitcoin ecosystem. They got control of the supply. Half of it was lost from the early days anyways, like that, maybe even more, right? At least 25% of the Bitcoin supply, somewhere between 20 and 25% is just fucking lost. It's gone forever because people didn't know how to keep their keys back in the day. So half that early coin is just gone. And then ASICs came along, centralized the supply, and they needed a way to distribute that onto all of the new plebs for the libertarian revolution that was coming in Bitcoin. And so that's what they did, right? And so all the other coins, all these ASIC mine coins like Zcash, they have a big fat supply, and they want to sell you the coin they printed with ASICs or for free. Monero never allowed ASICs; it was GPU, and then now it's CPU. So if you wanted Monero, you had to mine honestly, and there was, there wasn't a big pre-mine, right? All the other coins with their pre-mine or their insta-mine, like, "Oh, whoops, we accidentally, or we had a mistake in our algorithm and we mined 25% of the entire supply that will ever exist in 2 days. Oh, whoops. We won't relaunch though because the community doesn't want us to." "Quote unquote community." Sure, guys. So that happened with a few coins actually. And so why do they hate Monero? They didn't get any of it for free, and they don't have fat stacks of it. They don't even have enough to meet the withdrawal demands on their exchanges. Like, they're fractionally reserved out the ass. So that's why you have this corporate ecosystem that just doesn't like Monero. They want to sell you their fucking Israeli mined DARPA, Air Force Research Lab, deep state intel agency coin, right? Like, that's what they want to sell you, that they got for free. Like, listen, the tech is cool. ZK snarks are cool. If optional ZK snarks, if optional ZK privacy snarks are the way to go, then I would just use Tornado Cash or whatever privacy option exists. It's just snarks exist in a number of places on a number of chains. Like, why would I go into Zcash to get an optional snark when I could just fucking do it on a contracts platform? Like, I could already do that, or I could just use Monero because everyone already accepts it. So anyways, Zcash, fuck you, your price is fake, and we know that you're just a cabal of DCG and Brian Armstrong and other corporate exchanges, the Gemini brothers, etc. And you guys have fat stacks, which you have given a decent, nice portion of to influencers, and we know that you're just creating a competition to Monero because you really hate Monero. Fuck's sake, guys. It's funny how the very exchanges that allegedly serve the crypto industry are, in fact, antithetical to the principles on which crypto was founded. So whatever. Pirate Chain is looking at some resistance here. This is the long-term. This is a big long-term upper standard deviation line. It'll probably keep going, right? This is probably not the end for Pirate Chain here. I bet you they're gonna hit this line. If you're a Pirate Chain hodler out there, you might even get lucky. And let's go to the 2-day here. You'll probably find yourself somewhere here, right, at this guy. That's a massive sell point. If you don't sell at that level, right around like 1.1, if you're not selling at these upper standard deviation bands here, I'm sorry, no one can help you, and may God have mercy on your soul. But that's the place to fucking take profits and or try to get back whatever it is you lost 4 years ago. Xano chart. Xano actually not looking hasn't done super great relative to anything else lately, but this isn't the worst chart pattern either. So it could, this thing could plausibly get some upside. Yeah. Xano could definitely get some more upside here. It doesn't mean it's going to immediately. It'll probably bounce with everything else. Will it actually break out and make the next big move up? I don't know. Probably not quite ready for that yet. Let's see, Cubic just exploring the bottom of its range here. If we get a renewal on the bull market, they'll probably find a way to make Cubic get some pumpage, and that will put us into the zone for them to be doing selfish mining attacks again, right? Because they can rent the hash power that they need. Probably one of the things they're doing is when they get to some certain threshold, they say, okay, we can flex up, we can bump up here, we can buy the hash power that we need temporarily to get ahead of a few blocks, get ahead by a few blocks, and then try and push our luck there, and then see if we can't reorg the chain. They still have to pay miners, they have to bribe miners, right, to do that. So they need a higher price to do that. That's part of their mechanism. So yeah, as long as the bull market is on, guys, expect that Cubic is going to try and hang in there. I consider them a proxy for those same corporate assholes we talked about a second ago. I consider Cubic their own little proxy, or some kind of dirty, dark deal was done in the background that we don't know about. Doesn't matter. Maybe it was a wink and a nod, right? Maybe they never shared a cigar in a back room together. Because these guys, a lot of times all you need is wink and a nod. But the point is that Cubic needs maybe around this area right here. Probably that moving average area is probably right where they need. So if they get back up to that level, and that's what we've seen. We've seen them when they're above this level, they tend to do, or when they're around this level, they tend to kick on their selfish mining attacks. So, all right, guys, that's crypto. That's what crypto looks like today. Let's take a look at the macro, and then we can sign off. So let's look at gold. Gold had a tumble. This is normal. I guess that. Oh, Jesus. Okay, that's 8%. That's a pretty significant drop. 8% is a pretty big drop for gold. But considering that's after a 31% move towards the upside, that's still pretty good. I do. If this thing keeps going, then we're fundamentally in just a different place. We're not. Let me just mute these right here. That's going to be confusing for people. Gold has gone significantly beyond my model, right? Gold has definitely outperformed my model to a significant degree, to the tune of about 25%. Usually when things break my models, they break them by a reasonable amount and then regression to the mean. And in which case, the edge of the boundary of the model now becomes the new mean. Once you break a model like that, usually it'll become like that boundary becomes a new sort of average place to hang out. So I really am genuinely looking for a return at some point to the boundary of that model. If we see that happen, then know that gold's run is basically over. It's not over. It's just that don't expect it to do another one of these guys. I'm not saying that it won't. I'm just saying that if it comes back down to the model area and then starts doing some oscillations, that's probably a sign that it is actually time for gold to take a back seat. We'll have to look at the rest of the market and the rest of the macro as the time comes and as time passes. We'll have to look at that, and I know it's a bit wishy-washy. I'm always nervous and hesitant to buy things that have gone up. I can't do it. I can't chase guys. The problem is that intuitively the risk tolerance is not there. If you buy something, when there's blood in the streets, if you buy something when it's crashed a lot, you're like, all right, at least, maybe it could crash more, but at least I've got some of that crash out of the way. But right here, you're saying, hey, is this the top? I don't know. We just had a big move down in gold, and it's not terrible. Like on a big bull market, this is what you would expect to see, right? You expect to see some pullbacks. This thing, for all I know, will resume breaking my model, and I hope that it does. But it might not. So just know that I'm kind of in uncharted territories. I don't have a whole lot of good references for what gold does next. I don't have a way to say how high is it going to go. The only thing that we might do is try and compare gold against the S&P. We might try and compare gold versus silver, right? We might try and look at gold versus silver and say, hey, where were previous levels that it has done. And is there a trend there? Yes, we might try and draw like this line, right? So maybe if we started hitting this line again, we might try to say, hey, here's a chance that gold versus silver ratio is bottoming out, and that'll be the top of the gold market, right? That's a possibility, because silver, like honestly, silver hasn't really even run compared to what you would expect in a real gold bull market. You would expect silver to outperform by another 50%, right? So all other factors being equal, you would look at silver, which is right here. You would look at silver and you would say, hey, there is another 2x to run in price. In other words, for silver to drop 50% relative to gold, silver would need to pump by 100% in its US dollar price. I know that feels weird in terms of verbal mathematics, but that's how percentages work. So silver here would need to pump to basically $100 to actually hit those levels on the gold versus silver chart. And that wouldn't be too terribly surprising, to be honest. Let's take a look at the monthly on silver. Triple topping. It's not a triple top. I don't believe in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or triple tops. So, but silver does need maybe a moment to consolidate. That's kind of what it looks like. Let's go here. Yeah. So, I mean, this is not surprising. We actually talked about this. We said, hey, actually, the most bullish scenario for silver would be to break through that sort of horizontal rising resistance, almost horizontal rising resistance, right? It would be best to break through that and then consolidate above it and then start going again. Okay, it broke through it and it's consolidating below it. That's fine. You just want to see it break through again, in which case it'll be off to the races. Probably $100 is a pretty solid silver target. That would be nice. I might actually have some real money in silver at that point. For real. My silver bars will be ready to, I don't know, trade for land or something. Who knows? Okay. Anything here? Oh, we were talking about what else could we look at to try and divine when the end of the gold bull market might be happening. Right now, maybe this is just a little bit of resistance in the moving average cluster. Let's zoom in on that a little bit more. That way, this wouldn't be called like a major, like huge resistance area. It is kind of a resistance area. So, but you would kind of expect to probably beat that. Realistically, at some point, you expect to get back into this zone, but they're such fuckery. There's so much, like, they do so much fuckery with gold, and they suppress it, and they pump the stock market so much. Like, they've made it really, again, chart bias, right? If you're going to do technical analysis, you have to understand the bias of the chart. And the bias on this chart is down, right? The bias of gold versus stocks, particularly the S&P, that bias is down. And we know the mechanisms for that, right? They've got their gold suppression schemes, their fractional reserve, and they print the money. So they decide where that new money goes first. And gold has to get the hand-me-down liquidity after the fact. But there's not all as well in paradise right now, and they're going to try and revolution the country or civil war the country or whatever. Who the fuck knows? But I'm probably not even going back to the States for some period of time until all of that shit blows over. I'm definitely not on their good boy list, that's for sure. Anyways, yeah, so okay, there's gold. Let's take a look at the rest of the macro. Dollar index. No, wait, that's US Mexican. Dollar index here is stable. It's not doing anything. It's not pumping, right? Again, so it's kind of like we saw the oil crash and we saw the Trump tariff crash, and we were like, yeah, but the rest of the macro looks fine, including the dollar index. This thing is just stable as fuck. So it's just sitting here doing nothing. That's good. That's what we want to see. You don't want to see the dollar index spiking. At this point, we don't even want to see it crashing. We don't want to see it dropping, because that would kind of, if the dollar index were to start just crashing down below this massive trend line from decades, like almost 2 decades now, if it were to just start crashing, that's actually kind of a bad sign that we're going to see inflation coming back. And yeah, the markets will pump. You'll get your blow off top, but who's going to sell it in time? Probably nobody, because people are really bad at selling tops. Okay, the reverse repos at the floor, 2 billion, doing nothing. Everyone's leveraged. Everyone's into the market. The risk money is on. Why would you be in reverse repos? The rates are coming down, right? No one wants to be in reverse repos when Jay Powell has told us that he's going to be lowering rates. I don't know when their next meeting is, actually. Let's take a look here. Federal Reserve. What are we? 2025. Scrolling down. October. Oh, so this week. Next week we have a Federal Reserve meeting coming up. I don't know what the sentiment is about whether they're going to drop rates again or not. Let's take a look. The bond market should actually be telling us. It is kind of moving towards the downside. So I bet you it's kind of up in the air. I bet you we don't really know.
According to what I understand, the possibility of them dropping rates is somewhere in the 80s or 90s, according to the betting markets.
Oh shit! Okay, thank you for plugging that gap. All right, well that makes some sense, right? We are seeing these bonds. The rates have moved gently towards the downside, but this is not a crashing kind of scenario. So the rates they're stable, right? Everything's fine. There's plenty in terms of the pattern, right? In terms of the patterns we've noticed, this thing can stair step down, right? They can stair step this thing down over time, and they can extend this into next year. And at some point, we don't know when, but at some point, it's just going to be like, oh shit, and that's going to happen, right? And that'll be the end of the bull market. And the thing is, everyone knows about this pattern by now, so like it happens simultaneously with the crash. But at least it helps us to identify, hey, this isn't the real crash, right? This is not the crash you're looking for. And then you don't sell your bags before new gains are on the way, right? So we looked at the bond market 2 weeks ago and said, hey, everything's fine here. There's no reason to sell your bags. There's no reason to panic. Oil has recovered somewhat back to that $61 range. It's crazy that it's crazy the way that they can goose these markets, but oil got down to those lows, the $55 lows in the Trump tariff scare crash recently, mini crash recently. And the rest of the market shrugged it off. So I think everyone's kind of realizing that's another thing markets learn. So everyone's kind of realizing, hey, when Trump opens his mouth about tariffs, he's going to reverse his position soon. So that's probably actually just an opportunity to buy some more. That'll be true until the moment that it's not, maybe. I would be more concerned right now about whether or not they intend to civil war the country. They probably don't really intend to civil war the country. They probably intend to like maybe fake civil war the country and try and spark the violence and try and have some excuse to continue the thuggery. Like, I know we got groypers out there. Probably they don't listen too much to my price report because they all hate me now. But groypers, they're coming for you next. I know you don't fucking realize it, but they're coming for you next. And you're like half of you, not all of you, but half of you are cheering on this standing army that they're deploying and normalizing. And they've effectively already removed posse comitatus, which was probably only nominal anyways, right? I mean, there was a civil war and we're still in forced reunification. So it is a belligerent status, although that doesn't rise to the surface very much. Like, you basically never see that in official jurisprudence, but the entire thing is still belligerent status. And it's only like it's becoming more belligerent now. And they always the North always reserved, the Union always reserved the right to deploy the feds to wherever fucking state that they want, to bring people in line with whatever it is they want. But the reality is, groypers, the reality is that if you really want to remove the illegals, you could do this with due process. You don't need to deploy a standing army to the states to be so violent and overt about it, right? So if your claim is that, well, this is just the means to the end, no, this is the end. That thuggery on U.S. streets by the feds being deployed into cities in the United States, that is the end. That is the reason, because they could just do it using regular legal procedures, right? They could do all of that within the scope of established law without being totally dicks about it. So this is not just a means to an end. It is the end. The thuggery is the point, and they're coming for you next. So I hope that y'all will realize that, it's not, you don't need to worry about the people dealing marijuana and fentanyl. I know you guys don't like it, and maybe weed's not the best drug. Maybe drugs are bad. Okay. But I'll tell you who the biggest drug pushers are, right? It's the guys that tried to lock you in your house and force you to take a vaccine. Those are the drug pushers that need to be extrajudicially taken care of. No, just kidding. They should be judicially taken care of, right? You should do the due process, and you should make a big show of it. That's not going to happen. Those are their friends, right? So anyways, you might even find that if we ever dealt with all of the actual criminals in the corporate governmental apparatus, maybe the brown people wouldn't matter quite so much. Maybe it'd be like, well, actually, it's not a big deal. everything's actually relatively fine. Maybe we don't have to be so racist anymore, right? You might actually come to that conclusion if we had a society that was based on fairness and justice, right? And we had a monetary system that wasn't just raping and pillaging the economic financial system. Anyways, back to price report. Just a little. I don't want to hate on you Groypers, but guys, y'all can't, like, just because some institution, some politicians do something that you kind of like doesn't mean that you should. They're not your. That doesn't mean they're your friends. Okay. What are we looking at here? I think it looks like we got another bump up on the. Yeah. Okay, this is a daily chart. Yeah, there was a bump up here. How did that liquidity bump so much? The green is the United States liquidity, so that did take another bump up. That's a sign of more gains to come, right? Like we said, the bull market's not over. All right, government's still shut down, so I doubt we have any numbers, any new numbers.
We
I
did
don't
get
see anything.
CPI.
Okay, yeah, this chart was feeling slightly different. Nothing surprising here, I guess. If this stays at 3%, that's fine. It's that'll be kind of the new normal. Slightly more. We had 2% inflation for the aughts, right? For the decade post 2008, right? We had 2% inflation, roughly speaking. Now I guess we'll have 3% inflation. That's not terribly more, but hey, that is the golden age of fraud. They're going to steal 3%, 50%. They're going to steal 50% more with inflation now. In a lot of ways, that probably can't even be avoided. A lot of that money might already exist out there in the ether, and it just has to inflate. Who knows? That's kind of the thing, that the trick that they played for a long time, and people are aware of it now. It's like they print a bunch of money, it goes into certain places. You don't see the inflation in ordinary goods and services, and then that comes later, right? Inflation doesn't happen symmetrically across markets. It happens highly asymmetrically, but eventually it filters out. And so because of that, it was easy to make people feel like inflation wasn't tied directly to monetary policy, the Federal Reserve and the banks. And now we know better. Anyways, yeah, I guess that's it, guys. That's all I got to show you this week. Nothing else here really going on. Overall summary: bull market's still on. Monero is probably getting ready to break out. Bitcoin and crypto is also probably getting ready to resume some kind of uptrend here in the not distant future, even next week. Like, I would not be surprised to see some nice gains and recovery next week on cryptos. So that's it, and I'll hand it back over to Doug and Shortwave.
Exciting. You got some super chats here, Monero chats. Let's see. Amortel tipped 7 cents. Can you take a look at Firo?
Sure thing. Let's see here. We had Firo pulled up, but we didn't really address it. Yeah, let's open this chart. I guess this is looking not quite like a pennant, but it has a similar feel as a Zcash chart, where it had a big, it came up towards the upside, and then it's doing this guy right here. Let's go to a shorter time frame, actually. Yeah, this is just consolidation. It had a big move. It came to a local standard deviation cluster, so that's kind of where you would expect to get some resistance. If this thing starts moving up and doing that, you should probably expect some kind of breakout to happen, to continue. Guys, it really could be the case that if the bull market resumes and all those fears are like alleviated, and everyone says, "Oh yeah, it was just a little pullback," right, and things move back up here again, expect, especially the alts, that'll be their next opportunity to pump. And I think this next one will tell us, are we in a bull market for ants, or is it a real bull market, right? Are we like in a strong bull market? Are we going to see a real alt season, right? What is this? An alt season for ants? Can't even get below 50% dominance. This next one will tell the tale, guys. If you see shit and you don't see alts gaining in this next rebound, whenever it happens here in the next, let's say, 1 to 3 weeks, then we'll know that it's going to be tough to get your altcoin gains at that point. But there's still hope. There's still hope. So
yeah, no, I think it's it seems like it's moving in that direction. But that's me just using my 2 cents, not sharding anything.
2 cents. It's time. You got to man. You got to change the name from Monero Talk to 2 cents.
We got another one here. AK Anon tipped $2.03. The gold-backed exchange will return with lessons learned. Bring more gold backs body. Can you comment on the implications of Thorchain adding XMR? Some personal speculation on the macro.
Let's see. Bring more gold. I don't have any gold backs to bring, bro. But
I think he meant that
assume,
he's
yeah,
bringing.
he's gonna bring them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll come ready to buy some 50 and 100 spots off you.
Damn.
For sure. Okay, let's see. And then Thorchain. The implications of Thorchain are great. It's in a social sense, right? That's a really good thing. I find myself wanting to go to other things other than like cash or Bitcoin. So in terms of like Ritu swap. And I know Ritu's supposed to offer other coins, but like there's not really much liquidity there. And Thorchain is like popular, right? It's more popular at least. So that it can only be a good thing in terms of attention and acceptance and integration. And the easier it is to get from Monero to other stuff, the better that's just going to be in general. It'll be harder to suppress Monero's price. The more liquidity that we have on other exchanges, once our liquidity on all of these dexes is significantly above anything that the centralized exchanges could hope to have, it's game over for their price suppression. That's when we win. Now they have to. Now their price gets forced to what happens on the DEX. They are forced to peg their price to what happens on the DEX. And yeah, there's still going to be people using the centralized exchange, and yeah, they can still absorb some fractional reserve component there. But the more those DEXs get used, guys, the more we win. So,
what do you think about Thorchain itself? Did you have you checked that out? It seems like
I don't know exactly what their mechanisms are. I know they've been pwned before. I know they were worried about the regulatory arena, and maybe they weren't entirely wrong to be worried about that. I mean, they are kind of a centralized set of guys providing this exchange, and so but seems like the regulatory is fine now, pretty much. I don't really know the details of their project in terms of like how sound it is technologically.
Yeah, I had JP on Thursday. Recommend you go give him a listen, and maybe I could get another Thorchain guy up on MoneroTopia at some point, and we. Could,
I would like an impartial, disinterested, technically competent party to take an evaluation.
Oh,
which hypothetically could be me if I just ever go look at their implementation. But
what do you think of Thorchain's chart? I mean, it's at like rock bottom prices right now.
Oh, really?
Once again, this isn't the chart is speaking. This is the Tumen sense. Seems like it has good potential to run. Obviously,
Thor, what's the I guess Thor USDT. It's probably what we want to look at.
Rune. It's called Rune.
Oh,
yeah. Sure. Or Thorchain. I think it should pop.
Wait,
up.
No, but there's Rune, but there's also runes on.
No,
there's
Thorchain
also runes on Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, it's not runes. It's different.
All right. Yeah, that is pretty low price. Let's put on some wave magic and see what happens there.
Well, what is this right now?
It's terrible.
What chart is this?
This is Rune USDT on Binance since 2021. Is that the right time frame? Maybe that's an inflation problem.
I don't think that's the right chart.
In terms of their market cap,
no, that doesn't look like.
This is their market. This is the market cap chart of Rune, crypto cap Rune.
No, I don't think that's right. That's not right. I don't think that's not Thorchain.
Like I mean, here's what comes up. Here it says Thorchain. All right, that's what we're looking at. Rune USD. Okay. No, that was the right chart. Yeah.
So it's showing it at like 80 cents. It's at 80 cents right now.
Yeah, this is what you call breakdown. Like in a technical sense for this chart, I would be looking at this and saying this has got more downside. Like unfortunately for them, because here's what happens: you come to this lower standard deviation band, very very common pattern, right? So they had their bull market. Things came down. They set the lower standard deviation band, and they didn't return to it. And then they returned to it in 2025, and now they can't. Like they should actually. Like normally you would come back up here, but they couldn't do that. Instead, they broke down. They broke down significantly. And so now the next thing you want to see is they're going to do this right here. They'll end up touching the underside of that lower standard deviation band as it curls under, and then it'll fall further. So that could, this could be a longer time frame. Maybe it could do that, right? And then maybe it won't be till next year till they actually break down. But in a technical sense, this is a very not good pattern for their price chart. So, but that might not have anything to do with the quality of their platform, right? Just because the platform price doesn't go up doesn't mean that the platform isn't useful.
Right. For sure. I mean, it does look like when you look at the lifetime chart of Thor. So it had a market cap of 5 billion at some point when it was like really revving, and the amount of volume that's been swapped through ThorChain definitely took a hit, and with that was the price. So I mean, it seems like the thesis would be is if they could get the volume, more people using ThorChain, price will start to go up again. Simple, just real simple.
Is their token a necessity of chain of swap usage? Like, do you need Thor to do a swap?
Yeah. So it's like Sarai Dex. So the swap happens using Thor. And then additionally, they burn. It's actually deflationary because they burn Thor off the profits from that are made from the trades.
I mean, we'd also have to look at how centralized is their supply. A highly centralized supply, especially for if they're not corporately associated, like with the exchanges, then there's going to be no one. If they have centralized supply, there's going to be no one to prop up their price for them. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I have no idea. And this isn't a terrible chart. I mean, in terms of like
is that the all-time? If you do all-time market cap chart,
I mean, I think that's what this is. So you go
Why
crypto.
Does it look so...
I mean, because ThorChain didn't really come around until 2019. Like that's the beginning of its chart. But yeah, if you want to find the longest chart that you can for pretty much any crypto, you do crypto and then you look at the asset. You're looking for ThorChain. Yeah, I mean, so this is it. Right?
Okay, and that's the same. Okay,
it's the same chart. This is 2019. It looks like their first prices were in July of 2019, and just trying to remember in my brain going back that far, that feels about right. That's about when I first started hearing rumblings of ThorChain.
2019.
Yeah. So this probably is the full chart.
Like 2020, it hit like 5 billion in like 2021 market cap, and now it's at like a $30 million right market cap or something. Yeah.
Let's take a look. Rune. So this is the market cap chart.
Now it's at a 300 million market cap. Okay.
Yeah, that's 5 billion, and oh wow, man, that is pretty low. But maybe you don't need.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how much more can it bottom out? And it's it has real utility, right? You look at it like a lot of these cryptos that are ahead of it in market cap are just competing to be something on a speculative basis, but this is like. It's actually used quite a bit, even with its drop in volume from some of the issues they had. They had some major issue. They had some feature essentially where you could do lending, and it went catastrophically wrong, and that's when they really had the crash. But then they since fixed that. But as the concept of liquidity, it's what Luke is building, right? It's using liquidity pools for doing. Cross-chain swaps. So there's definitely like a project will win that space. Thor was literally the first to ever do it. Hat was the biggest. Still is. I guess you have things like Hyperlink or something but they're built a little differently. Hyperliquid.
I mean, I get the impression that people for the most part, just use instant swap exchanges. They either use regular exchanges or the instant swap exchanges.
Yeah, but I think that's going away, right? I think eventually, this model is going to be the one that's going to take over in time, right?
Eventually, but there's also kind of like, there's a sort of like front facing, the corporate face of crypto exchanges, and they're compliant and regulatory compliant. And then I have to believe that a very similar group of people are also behind these instant swap exchanges. And part of that is, well, people are going to find a way. And we don't want them going to DEXs. So let's not attack the instant swap exchanges too much. Let's kind of let them exist on the regulatory edges. And as long as they're still cooperating with the chain analysis, we won't push them too hard on the other stuff. And who knows how many backroom deals have been done with regulators and other corporate entities so that they can still get their hands on the data that they want and need for tracking and tracing. Because what happens if all of that goes to DEXs where they can't force a turnover of information, force a surrender of information in cooperation with chain analysis, right? So they might actually, yeah, exactly. So what I'm saying is that I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just saying, because I do believe it will happen eventually, but it's an uphill battle to get everyone onto DEXs when the instant swap exchanges are more or less working for the vast majority of people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I will say, I mean, I doubt you did, but have you tried the Zashi wallet?
I should, I guess, but no, I have not.
You should give it a try. I mean, it's lessons to be learned there for Monero. Obviously, we have Cake Wallet, we have Edge, we have Monero. They're all doing great things. Cake does a great job with the instant exchanges built in there. But Zashi is very slick and sexy and streamlined with near intents built into it, which is essentially another form of a decentralized exchange. It's not, a centralized instant swap. And it is as slick as using any a traditional centralized instant exchange, and you're swapping Litecoin into Zcash or whatever it is, any other crypto into Zcash, happening somewhat instantaneously in a few clicks. You didn't give up any information. You don't have to worry about shotgun KYC. There's really no difference between that and using an instant exchange. Like it's even like arguably slicker the way Zashi did it. So I don't know. I think these things are really going to compete. I guess the primary difference is the rate, right? Like, can you compete on the rate? Because there are some advantages with being centralized. But I think over time, if the liquidity pools get large enough, like, wouldn't that be where you'd end up getting your best rate anyway?
It's about convenience. If something is convenient, then people will use that solution. Like the masses.
Right. So what I'm saying is I'm seeing these things being as convenient as instant exchanges. Like if you go on Zashi and you use it, it's as convenient as using an instant exchange on Cake, right?
Maybe, but then you have to download another wallet. So like right now, if I go to Trocador.app, I can switch from Monero to whatever I want or whatever I want to Monero. I don't have to download, install another program or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. You need to be able to go to a website and then just like, hey, what's your website? Oh, cool. Let me swap on this website.
But I don't have that wallet, Doug.
We need.
Oh, okay. Well, so Thorchain has that. It's like swap.thorchain or something, but it's basically. It's literally an instant exchange.
You need an add-on, right? You need a Mozilla add-on and a Chromium add-on. That just install the add-on, right, and done, right? You need all of the above, right? You need an app, you need the website, you need the add-on, and it all accesses the same thing, and that's how you get liquidity. And then you need obviously your prices that actually need to be as good as or better than the instant swap exchanges. And then your occasional large, your occasional whale and dolphin out there need to be able to swap 50 grand, 100 grand, $500,000 on your exchange, and just that liquidity needs to be seamless, right? It needs to be like, hey, I fucking had to do 5 different transfers and I got hit 5% every single time. Like all of those things have to be done. Like if you want to beat the instant swap exchanges, when all of those things are in place, then we win. But until then, people will just use instant swap exchanges. Like they'll still be in big competition, and then you still need the time frame, right? It takes time for that liquidity to eventually switch over. So you do need that. You do need that the time for that change to happen.
Here, let me. Why can't I bring up my screen? I guess because.
Should I stop sharing?
Yeah. If you can stop sharing, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, by the way, it is likely that ReToswap is going to hit 50 trades per day this month.
Nice. What's the total liquidity there?
Last time I just checked Haveno.markets here recently, and it was like 10,600 Monero.
Nice. Okay. Per day?
Oh no, that was total in the order books right now.
No, it's daily volume is what matters.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'd have to look.
I guess if I mean 10,000 Monero on the order books, like currently on the order books, that's pretty good. I'm sure there's a lot of like high ball, low ball. I need to integrate that into the price report here. I really do.
Yeah, the site I was using was Haveno.markets.
Yeah, because every time I go to markets, every time I go to ReToswap, they don't have like. It's an interesting. That's an interesting way for that chart to load. Okay, yeah, let's take a look. Liquidity 700. So I guess that would be. I'm sorry, bro, but I'm going to convert this into dollars. That is about 1 million, 3 million. Do I have that right? Yeah, that's about $3.5 million of liquidity currently in the markets. We need to see the Oh, I'm not sharing. Okay,
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine.
Get your screen up. Well, you don't. Yeah. If you.
Oh, you
have
wanted to
put it
show
up again.
something, right?
No, it's okay. You can bring it up.
All right.
I was just showing the instant exchange.
All right, I'm sharing now.
Damn.
Yeah. So what we need is the depth chart. Oh, they got an I2P link too. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, the depth chart is only on ReToswap itself. I don't know of a way to access that other than through the actual software.
Every time that I go to ReToswap, though, there's not the chart isn't updated. Excuse me.
Oh, the website doesn't have the depth chart on it. You actually have to bring up the actual program itself.
Yeah, you've got to install the. Yeah, I don't have it installed in this environment, so not the simplest for me to. My entire system is segregated. It's like cubes, but for FreeBSD. So everything I have is like all my windows, my screens are all segregated. I actually got it to where, like, I don't know if you know anything about X11, but your X11 windows can all see each other and spy on each other. And I actually managed to separate all of them so that they can't see each other. I pay for that with a little bit of inconvenience. But yeah, you got to download the client, install it to actually see the depth chart here. But it would be nice, guys. I don't know, ReToswap. Listen, guys, it would be really good if you could get on here and have an interactive web app that just like, okay, you're not going to trade with it, but at least you can see what ReToswap, is doing. Kind of like how we saw, on the Haveno markets here, right? Like that would be nice to have that on the ReToswap site. Along with the depth market or Haveno markets or Haveno.markets, whoever runs this site, wouldn't be a bad thing to add a depth chart to this site as well, because that matters. That matters a lot for certain people, right? If you're trading over, let's just say $10,000, you need to know what your depth looks like. But then again, just install the app, right? That's the answer there if you really need to see that. So.